We had a machine gun shootout in early 2021 on Everett. We were walking over dead bodies on the sidewalk, and we wouldn't even know that they were dead because we're so used to seeing people passed out, until the police drove up and they're like, "Jessie, that person you just walked by is dead. You know that, right?" And when one of my young housekeepers came across a dead body in one of the rooms, which is not uncommon for hotels, but this was an overdose. Someone came here and thought that they could try the drugs and died immediately. That at that point, you can't play nice anymore. You can't pretend like everything's fine. Like, the stuff that we have seen is unbelievable. And it's traumatizing. It's traumatizing for us. It's traumatizing for our staff. And certainly not what you want your tourists to be seeing. So, it's complicated. The fight for this neighborhood has been always. I don't want anyone to misunderstand as if something is new. We just have new problems. This neighborhood has always been hard. This neighborhood was a port town. This was the original downtown. It was a port town run by gangsters. All these buildings were hotels run by gangsters tricking sailors. That's what it is to be Shanghaied, right? And then downtown moved south, and this became where all marginalized communities were forced to live. And it became like a forced ghetto. And then all the social services started buying the land. And so it's been for always. But in 2020, things got so bad that you could no longer have a filter. You were no longer trying to play politics. I won't sell the businesses. The businesses will still be here. For myself, I think that I'm not long for Portland, because Portland, it requires a great deal of courage to do the types of changes that we're talking about. And I'm not sure that people are that brave here. Like, I had one of our elected officials say to me last week, "You're so brave, maybe the bravest person in Portland." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "I can't believe you went toe-to-toe with Antifa. I'm too scared." This is one of our elected officials. And I said, "Well, why were you scared?" And she said, "I don't want them to come to my house." And I said, "Oh, well, I told them, come to my house. I'll meet you at the door with a baseball bat." Because everyone is so afraid here, and they respond to threats of, like, maybe people are going to come threaten my children at school. That's what they did to a police officer. And people allow it. This group did this, and no one condemned it at City Hall. It's never going to get better for my little operation unless someone is here fighting like hell for it. Because I've seen it. Like, this is where everything gets pushed. This group keeps doing these pop-ups illegally. You're not allowed to close streets without a permit. They keep closing the streets without a permit, and all we did was ask that they get a street closure permit. But the week before we did that, the police asked them to do it. And one of the police officers was a woman, and they said, they named her kids, they're head to toe covered in black and sunglasses. They named her kids and said it would be a shame if something happened to your kids tomorrow at school, and named the school, and then posted it online. No one said anything about that, even though that's considered domestic terrorism. So if even the highest level government officials know that this happened and don't say a thing, what are we doing? And then calling me and saying, "Hey, I have an idea. What if you write a letter to this group and say, if you're gonna be here, even though I just asked them to not be here, if you're gonna be here, could you at least not hand out axes and knives and bear spray?" To which I said, this is not a legitimate organization, so who am I writing to? I don't negotiate with terrorists, so I just asked them to leave, or at least get a permit. Second, you're the government. Write it yourself. And they were like, oh, I see why you would say that. And I said, why am I providing cover for you? And this is the stuff that makes people feel like no one's in charge. The group did come to my house. They broke into my car twice. They broke into my garage twice. They're prowling around my backyard for 20 minutes. That's not a civilization. Are there any consequences? Absolutely not. Our leadership is afraid. I mean, we had one of our elected officials go down and try and address the group, but he's pretty sympathetic to them. And they refused to talk to him and said, you can communicate with us through our Instagram page. And when interviewed, he said, well, I didn't approach them the right way. That's not how they feel safe communicating. And to me, I'm like, your health inspectors and building inspectors and fire inspectors don't approach me the way I want to be approached. They show up at random to make sure you're doing it the right way. That's how this works. You're being inspected because who knows, you can't call ahead and then fix everything, right? And I know he's trying to negotiate something, but it's a little self-indulgent and a little coddling to the public, but only a certain segment of the public. We've created two classes of citizen here, the civilized and the uncivilized. And for the civilized, all the rules apply because they know we care about our reputation and we care about maintaining relationships. And for the uncivilized, no rules apply. And you can do anything you want. What I told the police chief, I told him this exact same thing. And I said, for the uncivilized, nothing applies and you can get away with anything. And I gave him the example that I get a parking ticket almost every single day. And what you're telling me is I should just threaten to kill the meter maid and then I'll never get a parking ticket again. Is that right? He was like, whoa, you shouldn't say that. I'm like, are you going to do something? Because I have yet to see anything get done. Someone literally threatened the lives of one of your employees' children and nothing happened. Why would I get in trouble for saying something like that? And so I don't know if you can name what's happening, but I do feel it is cowardice on the part of our leadership. And I think what people don't understand is that leadership, like it or not, is parenting. Portland is unclear anymore that laws exist and they will be enforced. I literally wrote a letter to all of our elected officials saying, why are we hemming and hawing about enforcing the law? Just enforce the law. That's all you have to do. And they're not sure what to do. They're worried about public backlash. They're worried about protests. They're worried about getting reelected. It's embarrassing for them. I have said for the 22 years I've lived here, with the exception of when Vera Katz was here, Portland is a city run by children. The children scream and flail and the city will bend to whatever they want. And that's not a city.